saw Peyton again this year. That's what we're here for. We have the experience. Peyton has the backing behind him that within just one phone call, he can get several years of experience. So our whole company's like that. We have several contractors that throughout our company. So we pack a lot of expertise in our company. And we stand behind our people. So with that said, I'm going to let Peyton take over.
Thank you, Eric. So I am Peyton Rushing. I cover Tennessee and Kentucky, and I actually only cover up to 75. So Richmond's actually in Eric's territory. He takes over past east. But I was in agronomy when I graduated college for about 4 years, and then I switched over to join the Stay Tough team here in the last year. So it's been really fun. Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Plans are nothing, planning is everything." And I want to stop right here and I want to hit on something really fast because this is the most important, pivotal thing. We're going to go over some planning and things to remember when you're building your fence, but the biggest thing, in my opinion, is you're going to put up a 20 to 30 year wire, right? We want to make sure that our fence can last 20 to 30 years. That means we need to have the right braces. We need to have the right posts. And cost dollar for dollar, when we're planning this out, I want you to get a piece of graph paper, and go all through it. Plan it out on make a cheaper fence, and then use a high tensile fixed knot fence and see where cost for cost comes out. Because when you use less post, the wire per roll may be a little higher, but when you look at cost per cost, I think it'll math out for you. So fence planning. Why do we need fence? Do we have new ground to be fenced? Are we replacing old fence? Did our great-granddad put up fence, 80 years ago and now we need to get it replaced? Or did we just buy a bunch of new ground and we want to fence it in? What are we doing? Are we using it for containment? Are we using it for exclusion? Where do we want to begin? So, like I said earlier, when you're looking at this, you want to lay all of this out on graph paper. You want to write all of it down. You want to make sure you know where your water lines are, containment units, gates. You want all of that laid out because that's going to benefit you in the long run because you're going to understand how you want to build this fence. What type of fence are we going to need? Are we going to use fixed knot? Are we going to use electric? Are we going to use barbed wire? All of that, it's going to depend on your personal preference. But when and like I said, go through there and do a dollar for dollar comparison and see what it comes out to. If you only need high tensile electric, go with high tensile electric. If you only need barbed wire, go with barbed wire. But this high tensile fence right here, it's the best fence on the market. Make sure you want to start with a clean fence line. So I have a guy in Murray. I live in Murray, which is in West Tennessee, so we're extremely flat. We're not over here in the rocky area like you guys are, which you can tell. But they bought a chicken farm, and their chicken farm, they need to, they've got to have 2.5 acres per 1,000 birds fenced in because it's pasture free. So they went down through here with a mulcher and cleared that. They rented the mulcher. I want to say he said it was $600 to rent the skid steer, and then it was another $4 or $5 to do the mulcher. I mean, he was out $1,000 and he cleared the whole farm in a day. It's not going to clear big trees, but it'll do a lot of work. So for $1,000, it's not the worst thing in the world. Make sure you have an updated survey. Clint's going to come talk about fence law later, so it's all going to make sense then. But you want to make sure you're putting the fence on your ground so your neighbor doesn't get mad. You also just want to make sure, because you're paying for it, you don't want it on somebody's ground when you go to sell it. We want to, when we start doing our fence layout, and that's what we did yesterday, that's what most guys do, you go out there and you want to run a string, and then you want to mark your post. So you want to go down through there, make sure you get your post spacing right. We recommend somewhere between 10 and 20, especially in this area where it's a little more hilly. You might have to go a little closer. We're doing 15s today. So, what type of fence will you need? This is going to depend on what type of animal you're keeping in. So, the big thing here is we need to think about the future. So, if you guys are all cattle guys right now, sheep and goat is becoming a huge popular commodity in this area. So if you're running cattle right now and you think you're going to run sheep and goat and you're fencing in a new ground, a 1348 wire, which is this wire right here, it is a great animal species wire. It's good for a lot of things. We have cattle wire. It's specifically a 949. And then we have sheep and goat wire. It's a 1348, but it's a 4-inch spacing. So you can see that's a 12-inch. The 949 comes in 6 and 12s. What will this, is this going to be perimeter fence or cross fence? Is it going to be a catch fence? Obviously, that's going to depend on your weave. So when you have a 12-inch spacing, like this right here, That is because you can get away with that on the perimeter. You can be a little wider outside. Whenever you get into a tighter situation, a more pressure situation, you want to drop down to a 6, and maybe even drop down further than that. So there's a lot of different options, a lot of different fence out there. The tighter the weave, though, the better your fence is, the stronger your fence is going to be. So let's talk about Stay Tough wire. Eric, if you don't mind holding that up. So this says 949, 6, 330. So 949 is the number of horizontal lines. 49 inches is the height of the fence.
9 lines.
Yeah. 6 is the spacing between the wires, and 330 is row length. So this is a 1348. So this is 13 horizontal lines. It is 48 inches high, 12-inch spacing, and it comes in a 330-foot roll. So that's how you understand our wire. Whenever you get a roll of our wire, it's going to look something like this depending on what you get. We have cattle fence, we have horse fence, we have sheep and goat fence, we have all kinds of different fences. That's going to be the most common in Kentucky. When you get this wire, if you look right here, it's going to have all the different types of cattle fence. So it's going to say 949 6, 949 12. It's going to be a 500-foot roll, a 330-foot roll, all kinds of different things. And it's going to be like that on all of it. It's going to say it on all of it. And on the back of that, most important thing, is the warranty card. When you put this fence up, keep that, because your warranty is on the back of it, and that's what you send in to get your warranty. So, high tensile wire. That's what we want to use if possible, and I'm going to go through and explain why. Fewer installation costs and fewer posts. So like we talked about earlier, when you're putting up your hinge joint fence, you got to be much tighter on your post spacing. It's going to be a lot more post. And if you want your post to last, if you want your fence to last, you're going to use good post, right? So we're talking about a lot of money on just post alone. Class 3 galvanization or better. I'm going to skip ahead real quick. So Class 3 is a .80 zinc coating. If you get above that, you're in an extreme. That's a zinc plus aluminum. This is a 20-year fence. This is a 30-year fence. Wire has memory. So do you see these wire crimps right here, these little memory crimps? That means when we stretch that wire, we can get it as tight as possible, and then we can back it all the way off, and it goes exactly where it was. Now, Jeremy calls it good old boy wire, but if you've ever put up the stuff your granddad, your great-granddad, whoever they put up, when you stretch that wire, what's it do? It elongates, it stays stretched, it doesn't go back. This wire will go back. It's going to stretch less than 1%, so like I just said, instead of that good old boy wire where it stretches and stays stretched, this is going to stretch less than 1% and go back exactly where it was. It's got a greater breaking strength, and we'll get into that in a little bit, and it's going to act as a vertical trampoline. So this fixed knot right here, if I can borrow this, this is called a fixed knot, if you've ever seen this. And the reason this is superior is because this stay runs all the way up and down vertical, and it goes through this knot. Now, if you take this hinge joint, you can move that. You see how easy that is to move? This fixed knot does not move. It takes a lot of pressure to move that bad boy. It's not easy. So that's the superiority of a fixed knot versus a hinge joint fence. On a hinge joint fence, if you did that right there, that fence is going to the ground. On a fence, you can do that all day long and it's not moving. High tensile versus low carbon. High tensile wire has a 0.64% carbon content, and the high tensile used in a 12.5 gauge wire has a breaking strength of around 1,480 pounds. Low carbon wire has a 28% carbon content. Low carbon wire is used at 12.5 gauge. It breaks around 560 pounds. That's barbed wire. Low carbon, that was traditional woven. Low carbon woven wire breaks around 9 gauge, breaks around 1,100 pounds. Traditional 5-strand carbon barbed wire. 5-strand barbed wire, you put a brace every 330 foot. You have a line post every 8 to 10 feet. You have 5 separate pulls to install the fence. On a high tensile fixed knot, you put a brace every 1,320 feet. You have 15 to 20 inch spacings, 10 to 20, and then 1 pull to install the fence. So, let's decide on our materials. Pipe's going to make a nice system. Most people in the southeast are going to use wood posts, though. Pretty much everywhere you see around here, it's going to be wood posts. So before you buy your fence post, let's think. We want to use a pressure-treated post. And that pressure treating process, and the reason it's superior, is because the initial vacuum pulls surface moisture from the wood The cylinder is pressurized up to 180 psi for 7 to 9 minutes, pushing chemical into the wood, and then the final vacuum empties the cylinder, pulls excess chemical from the wood that is not bonded to the cells of the wood. That is the superior. That's going to be the best. That's where you want to invest your money on your fence post. It's going to last the longest. I was told, this is just coming from a lumber yard, but the lumber yard said that, and we're going to talk about post sizes in a second, but the bigger post you use, so if you go from a 4 to 5, if you go to 5 to 6, you're extending the life of your fence by at least 4 to 5 years. So it's a good amount. When you invest in your post, you're going to invest in your fence. You don't want to put up a 20, 30-year fence and only have 10-year posts, right? Selecting the best post for the right job. Our line post, 7 foot and 8 foot. We're going to use 3 to 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches, 5 to 6 inches. Our braces and corners, we want to do 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Diameter is measured at the top of the post, and it's going to be small size to big size at the bottom. A 7 foot is the most common, and then followed by an 8 foot, and then we recommend a 10 foot horizontal. Landscape timbers and perfect posts are not recommended. Why is that? That is because on a perfect post, well, first off, the good Lord did not make a perfect post, right? He made a tree. And when you have a perfect post, that means they went in there and they cut all the knots out of that. So that allows it to bend, that allows it to flex, that allows the treatment not to bond with it as well. So everything about a perfect post just goes out the window right there. And I'm not telling you not to use a perfect post, because in some situations you might have to if you can't find them. But if you can, use a regular post, pressure treated. That's going to be the most bang for your buck. That's where you're going to get the most return on your investment. We don't want to use decorative posts. Like we just talked about, railroad ties. Why are railroad ties taken off the railroad? Because they're wore out. So if you put them on your fence, they're already wore out. We do not want to use railroad ties on our 20 to 30 year fence. So this is Chris showing off his muscles. We like to show that picture. He was doing good there. Driven posts are 9 times stronger than dug posts. If you dig a post, fill it with concrete, and then you put a huge pressure on a brace, what's it going to do? It's going to come right out of the ground. You drive a post, you're creating a suction, you're putting it in the hole, and it's going to stay there. Lay with the land. So when you build a fence, when you build a brace, when you're putting your fence up, do you want to line everything up and make it perfectly straight if it looks like that? No. You want to lay with the land. You want to build your brace so it follows the land. Line posts, we want to place them on 10 to 20 foot centers like we talked about. The type of wire and terrain covered, we place a single H-brace every 1,320 foot. Now, an H-brace is the foundation of the system. It's critical to the life. So this is the most important part of the entire fence is the H-brace. If we don't build a correct H-brace, if we don't build a strong H-brace, we're wasting our time on the fence. We recommend a 10 foot horizontal end. We use our 12.5 gauge high tensile wire to go around it. We tension it down. And we're going to go through all of this in the demo. So we're going to build one, then you guys are going to get to build one. So you'll get to practice a little bit, get your hands on, get it dirty. A double H-brace is okay, but it's going to add extra cost to your fence. It's been proven that a single H-brace works just as well. Obviously you're not having to spend money on posts, extra wire. A single H-brace is perfectly fine on a high tensile woven fence. Now that the line posts are driven and the braces are ready, you're ready to put up some wire. So we're going to stretch from the center, or you can pull from the end if you have the equipment. Today we're going to stretch to the center. We're putting up about, I think it was around 290 foot. We'll stretch it to the center. We'll crimp it together. You'll see all that. We're going to splice it and let it go. Those are our crimps. So our crimps have little grit inside of it. So when you put it on the wire, you can actually sit there and flick it and it's not going to come off. It's really good in the winter when you have gloves on your hands and you're trying to get it on there and trying not to make it fall off and get on the ground. It's really great. It stays on there. And our crimps are actually stronger than the breaking strength of the wire. So that wire, if something falls on it, if something hits it, those crimps are going to break after the wire breaks. Fixed knot and electric go really good together. Jeremy's going to talk about the electric fence, but a fixed knot and an offset go great together. So in summary, we want to plan our system, guys. Like we talked about, we want to make sure if we're putting up a 20 to 30 year fence, we want to have the right equipment so that fence lasts 20 to 30 years. We want to make sure we know where our gates are, water lines, pressure areas, all of that we want to do. We want to install the fence properly with the correct tools and the correct bracing. And we want to enjoy a low maintenance, low Longer lasting fence, it's cheaper by foot in comparison. So that's what I'm saying. Apples to apples. Go out and compare the costs. Please get engaged today. We are going to do a lot of hands-on activities. We're going to build. We're going to let you guys build. Please get engaged. The more you do, the more you learn. So we just want to encourage you. Have a great day. Any questions? Well, we recommend putting an offset on it. So Jeremy's going to talk about offsets like we've been talking about, but yeah. Yeah.
There was a process for a while. There was a company promoting them out for a while, and we actually built the wire for that. We did a 24-inch spacing, so it was wider. And it depends on how they install it, if it works. There are some issues that can be built into that system. When you listen to Jeremy talk about electricity and how to get all that, you'll kind of pick up on some of those. I don't want to get too much into his presentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Any other questions?
Let's sing Payton and Eric for the presentation.